Hello Trailmen, my name is Jim Ramey. I'm the committee chair of Troop Ohio 0116 in Asheville, Ohio, and I'm also the North Central Region Committee High Adventure Chairman. We're here today to discuss our lessons on lashings. Now, if you saw my knot video, you'll know what knots you're going to have for lashings, but we're going to go ahead and review now. The two main knots you're going to have are the clove hitch and the timber hitch. Now, I'm going to demonstrate how to tie the clove hitch. We're going to show you the easy way first, then we're going to show you the more conventional way, because you're going to have to know both ways. And that's what you start and finish most of your lashings with. The timber hitch is one that you start what we call the diagonal lashings. And on the diagonal, you start with the timber hitch and finish up with the clove hitch. All right, I'm going to go around here. I've showed you one time how to run the clove hitch over top of a spar. The way you do that, you take your right hand and you twist it under your left and make a loop. Then you come back and do exactly the same thing again and lay that second loop on top of the first. Then bring it over top of the spar and pull, dress it up, and you've got your clove hitch. We'll try that again. Take your right hand, twist it under the left to make a loop, and come back and do exactly the same thing and put that second loop over top of the first one and then slide it over top of the pole. And once you get it dressed up, it should look just like that. The other way to tie a clove hitch is throw it over the spar and make an X. Once you get the X, just continue around and lift up the middle of the X and slide your line under and pull, and it'll end up just the same way. And try that one more time. Slide it over the spar, come around and make an X, then continue to come around and go up through the middle of the X and pull. When you dress it up, it should end up just like that. Now that's the knot that you'll use to start and finish most lashings. The next knot you'll need to know is called the timber hitch. The timber hitch, you simply take your line, throw it over the spar, then you're going to make the eye of a needle. Take a bite and see how that comes through like the eye of a needle. And then you'll twist this end around this part of the loop at least 3 times. Once you get it set, then you'll pull this direction till it tightens up. Okay, we'll demonstrate that one more time. Throw the line over the spar. You make your needle eye. Then you go around it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and pull this direction until it tightens up. That's your timber hitch. And that's used to start the diagonal lashing that we will discuss here after a bit. The first lashing we're going to talk about is the most common lashing, and it's one of the simplest because of the pattern that it is. It's called the square lashing. And we all know that a square has 4 equal sides. everything is 90 degrees. You should never have anything crossed over. Everything should be perpendicular to each other through the whole lashing. The way we're going to start that lashing is start out with the clove hitch first. We have our 2 spars, and you're going to need roughly around 10 feet of cord about this size. I'm using baler twine because it's easy to use, and it's relatively inexpensive for what you get. You leaders, if you do use baler twine, it comes in a bale or a ball anywhere from 9,000 to 16,000 feet long. I always put mine in a 5-gallon bucket. You will dispense it from the center of the ball. So I cut a hole in the top of the bucket and pull up through, and that way it's always pulled in the correct way all through the bale, and you won't lose any twine. So it's just a good tip and a good useful tool, and it's easy to handle that way, and it helps to keep it dry and helps keep the younger trailmen from wasting a lot of twine. Okay, so we're going to take our twine. We're going to start out with our clove hitch. Now dress your clove hitch up. Now a clove hitch will hold as long as you're pulling away from the hitch. When you start your square lashings, you're going to go down, you're going to go under the first spar, then you're going to go over the next spar at a 90-degree angle. Then you're going to come under that first spar again. And then you're going to come beside your clove hitch on the outside of that clove hitch. That's your first square. You've got one under, one above, and one under again. And it makes a square. You're simply going to follow that pattern on the outside of your clove hitch and then on the inside of the first one on the bottom. It's very important to get that on the inside. Then go on the outside of the top and then on the inside of the bottom. Now these are called your wraps. And you want to continue that pattern outside, inside, outside, inside, and continue that pattern at least 4 times. And try to keep it fairly tight. Now these are called the wraps. And the reason you go on the inside of the back is to keep everything close together all through the lashings. I'm going to pick this up and show you what I mean on the back side. Everything's on the inside, and then on the top part, it's on the outside. Now once you've completed your 4, then you're going to call what we call the fraps. And what a frap is, now remember, you want 90-degree angles at all times. The frap will come across, and you're going to go around the wraps in this manner. And pull it tight. What this does, your fraps tighten your wraps up. And trailmen, when you pull that, you want to hear it squeak. That way you know you've got it tight. So on your wraps, you want a minimum of 4, and on your fraps, you want a minimum of 2. You can use more, but make sure that you've got equal amounts all the way through your lashings. Once you get it frapped and tight, hold it kind of tight, and finish off with a clove hitch. You're going to go over, then you're going to make your X. Now here's the hard part. Keep your finger back on your frap so that you can loosen this X up when you come around and go up underneath the X. Then once you get it dressed up and pull it tight, walk it around and make it tight, and that's your square lashings. There's the back side. And there's your top side. Now, if you have a little bit left over, that's not a big deal. Most of your ropes you want to keep about the same length, depending on what type of spar you're using. So if you get a little extra, you either cut it off or just leave it dangle. If you have ropes cut just for lashings, it's not a good idea to keep cutting them up, because you may get some spars that may be a little bit bigger and you may need this extra line. So hang on to that and don't cut it out. I have some examples of square lashings on this trestle that I have built. Just square here, there, and also on these diagonals. This is actually square lashings, although it's not a 90-degree angle with a spar, it's still a square lashing. All right, the next useful lashing we have, we're going to call the figure of 8 lashing. It can also be used to make tripods, but we're going to show you the difference between a figure of 8 and a tripod lashing at the end of this. The figure of 8 is actually what that is. You just figure the 8 configuration, and we're going to start out with the clove hitch on one of these spars. And I'll start on the end. Now, once you get your clove hitch, remember you have to pull away from the clove hitch. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over the middle one and under the third one. Then we're going to make a figure 8. We're going to go over that one and under the middle, and then over the first one next to your clove hitch. Then we're going to continue that pattern in a figure 8. And the number of turns is just like for your square lashing, a minimum of 4. You can go more if you want. It depends on what the job's going to be. Now, once you have 4 of your wraps, get them dressed together. Then you're going to have to do your fraps to tighten your wraps up. Now here again, you want to keep it at a 90-degree angle. So once you come around your 4th time on your first spar, come in between these two and then feed down in. And pull it tight. You want to hear it squeak. And come around a 2nd time. You want a minimum of 2 turns. Now remember your 90-degree angle. You'll come over the middle spar, then you'll come up between the middle and the outside spar on this side. There's 1. And 2. And then finish it off with your clove hitch. Now here, if you've got too long a piece, I'm going to cut this just for ease of tying. To come up through the middle of your X. If you've got it tight, it'll be difficult, but persevere. Pull it tight. And that's your figure of 8 lashings. I'm going to flip it over so you can see the pattern on that side there. Now, you can use this to stand it up as a tripod, like I have right here. But a true tripod lashing, when you set your spars up, you'll have 2 in one direction and 1 in this configuration. That way, once you do your lashing, when you stand it up, you will actually pull this one down to tighten the lashings up. So when it comes apart, it'll come like that, and that tightens the lashings up on a true tripod lashing. True tripod, you do your figure 8 with your spars in this configuration. This is a tripod, but this is a true tripod lashing if you do it this manner. All right, the next lashing is called the shear lashing. Now, the shear lashing is useful for if you're going to extend a couple of poles to make like a flagpole, if you don't have one, to put a couple of spars together, or to just mainly join 2 together side by side. A little hint, it's always best to find some spars that are not perfectly parallel with each other, because you're going to have to work in between. So I've got a couple of hoe handles here that do have a swell in the middle. That's going to give us a little room to work and make it a little bit easier to do this. We're going to start out with the clove hitch. Put it over this spar. Now start down to where you're going to want it to start out. Then you're simply going to come around both spars, put it right next to your clove hitch, and remember you're pulling away from your clove hitch. Keep some pressure on this lashing. Keep it tight. And just simply come around. And the number of turns just depends on the size of the spar and the size of the load that you may be putting on this lashing. So we're just simply going around. Now, we're going to remember our 90-degree rule, and we're going to go down in between these 2 to do our frapping. So we've got about 6 or 8 wraps on this one. And now we're going to do a couple of fraps. Going down, come up through the middle, keep this tight, one turn. See how that tightens those wraps up when you pull on that frap? And keep that tight. Walk it on around and keep it tight. Give her a squeak. There's 2 complete. Now we're going to finish off with our clove hitch. Here's why you need the extra room in between the spars. Make your X. Keep going around. Lift your X. Go up through the middle. And then dress it up. And that's your shear lashing. Now, if you're joining 2 poles together, if you're going to have it like this, they kind of work back and forth and they can loosen up. So if you're going to extend some poles, and I've got an example here, put your shear lashing here, and then come up and put one right about here, and that stiffens that whole joint up. That way you can join 2 or 3 or 4 of these together, and they'll stand straight up. So you use a shear here to stabilize that whole system. All right, now the last lashing we're going to show you is called the diagonal lashing, but I want to explain something first. Usually a diagonal lashing is when you put 2 poles in an awkward angle, such as this type of diagonal. And what I have here, I have a trestle built, and we have our square lashings to get the main setup, but it's unstable. It can move back and forth. What we need to do are lash our spars together here to kind of join everything together tightly. Now, when you do a diagonal lashing on a setup such as this, I want you to notice something. I have lashed this spar on top of these 2 cross spars. When you do a diagonal, in order to get it to line up right in the middle, you'll come on the same side of these 2 spars with this spar, and then stick this in under this diagonal here. That's the only way it's going to lay flat so that you can do a diagonal lashing. Now, all of our lashings so far have started with a clove hitch and ended with a clove hitch. This is the only lashing that you're going to use what we call the timber hitch, and we're going to start it out this way. We'll take our timber hitch, we'll throw it between those 2 diagonals. Now remember, you make your eye of a needle. See your needle eye right there? And then you twist this at least 3 times. If you go 4, that's okay. Now, what you want to do is pull this direction against that spar. Then you're going to continue, you're going to put 4 wraps in that direction. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for spars of this size, that's pretty adequate there. Now here's where the diagonal comes in. Come over this, then we're going to come diagonally the other direction between these 2 spars. This way. So there's 1, and lay them side by side. 2, 3, and there's 4. Now that's your wraps. You've got one going this way, and then you got some coming across this way diagonally. Now you're going to start your frap just like you would for your square lashing. Come around this way, pull it tight, at least 2 full turns, and that tightens all this up. Then you're going to finish off with a clove hitch. And that's your diagonal lashing. And what that does, that firms that whole trellis up. And the strength that you get from this on a biblical scale is from Isaiah chapter 40, verses 28 through 31. God gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. And that's our lessons on lashings. Trailmen, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed these lessons, and we will see you at a later date. God bless you.